Hey, if Tommy Tuberville can run,
Tuberville.
anybody can run.
We'll go into that too. How are your levels?
I'm ready when you are.
You're already recording, aren't you?
Absolutely.
Welcome into the Ben Burnett Show. My name is Ben Burnett. My guest today is the first repeat guest I have had.
Wow.
Frank Duffy, welcome in.
That's pretty cool. I like that.
Yep.
I like that.
One of these days, we're going to get your buddy Ray Giudice.
And Ted Jenkins
And Ted
from
Jenkins.
Oxygen Financial and Ray from Giudice Law.
So I think they're interesting. Well, welcome back.
Thanks.
Since we have done that, is this day one? Are we sure? Is Will Wade, the head basketball coach at LSU, is he exonerated?
You know, I think the tail wagged the dog again. It's funny, the Oliva situation as AD at LSU.
He's the athletic director at LSU.
Yeah, well, he was. He's actually got fired last week. And Scott Woodward is the new AD, who actually was the guy at A&M, but he had LSU roots. But what's interesting about it is that when we had the Les Miles issue, the coup d'etat that got stopped at Thanksgiving 3 years ago.
Yep.
Oliva's time was short at that point, and when everything came down this year about Will Wade, I don't know what he did, what he didn't do. I just know that they rushed without due process, and they put him on suspension within a heartbeat of when that supposed tape came out. And so I think in hindsight, and I guess the lawyers all got together and all got in the same room. And again, I'm saying this as just a fan, an LSU fan. But what wound up happening is probably they didn't have enough to, in essence, prosecute him in that room. And Oliva wound up, if you don't win the coup, you get shown the door.
If you're going to shoot the king.
That's right. You better not miss. And that's what wound up happening. Now, of course, the sad thing is I'd like my Sweet 16 run back again. That we might have had a better chance of going a little bit further than just the 2 wins. But but it's an interesting thing. I will never forget back when I was at LSU, when my good friend, actually Dale Brown, I'm real good friends with his daughter, and with Shaq. And it's funny when Dale was kind of going through some issues, that I'll never forget the cover on Sports Illustrated, where the cover said "Crazy Days at LSU." It's one of the iconic covers of Sports Illustrated.
Back when that was a thing.
Back when that was a thing. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, we've come so much further than that. That was almost like our infancy of Crazy Days, right? We can do some stuff. So, but anyway, it's interesting. I think he's back, and the only problem is now, though, we lost like 6 players to the NBA. They all declared early. So there's definitely some fallout. So we're going to see if he can build it back. And now that the spotlight's on him, if he can build it back, he is a really good coach.
Oh, so let me story time with Uncle Ben.
Mm-hmm.
When I was at Samford, one of my good friends who I did Young Life with was he was the area director for Young Life in Birmingham.
Mm-hmm.
His name is Scott Wade. It's Will's cousin.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And Scott actually lives in Alpharetta, and so he helped get me an internship at Clemson, which is where Will was the manager.
Yeah.
So Will got me an internship for a summer, more or less to where I could have some access, do some things. You get to know some people in the athletic department, because I wanted to do that. Well, it didn't.
That's cool.
It wound up not working out, but I had this. I built this relationship with Will, who didn't play college basketball.
Yeah.
Just loved the game. He's a super nerd. Just loves the ins and outs of it.
One of the very few people in coaching that really didn't play the game. I mean, there's only a handful of them, like in the NFL, that didn't play. And that's kind of a rarity. I mean, normally you have some sort of actual playing experience when you're a coach. I think he's a great coach. Just watching him, from the sideline. He
was a manager. Shaka Smart was one of the assistants on the deep in the bench,
who I think went to VCU,
who later went to VCU, but then Larry Shiat, who wound up, he got let go, but then he went to work for Billy Donovan in Florida, and so they all had this friendship. And so Shaka goes to VCU, Will goes to UT Chattanooga, Shaka goes from VCU to Texas, Will goes to VCU, and then Will gets the job 2 or 3 years later from VCU. And I forget if they made a Final Four when Will was the head coach or when he was working with Shaka.
It was when he was with Shaka.
I think you're right.
I believe.
And so to go down there, you knew Will could, and he was at Harvard at somewhere, and they're working for Tommy Amaker. So the guy obviously was respected by some really good people. And the folks, you don't have to lie to me, the people in Baton Rouge are just thrilled to have a good basketball team.
Oh, absolutely. Let's put it this way. Back when we had Daddy Dale, and he put basketball on the map, and many people forget, we had some really good runs in basketball. We had the '86 Final Four team that was up on Purvis Ellison's Louisville team at halftime in the semifinal, wound up losing. And then we had the run in 1981 on the day that Ronald Reagan got shot. We were up in Philadelphia for the Final Four and wound up losing to Indiana, to Bobby Knight, who eventually went on to win. In fact, both those
I've heard of him.
Yeah, both of them went on to win, right? So we've had some success, but we've never really strung it together. And let's face it, I mean, the basketball will always be the second banana at LSU. In fact, it's really not the second banana. It's actually the third banana. Baseball comes in before basketball at LSU. But, again, we love our sports. And
you'll cheer for it if you're the first week in April and you're playing, you're in.
If we're going, if we're starting to make a run, we're in. If we're having our typical 2 or 3 win SEC season, it's like when spring football starts.
Let me offer a different take on what just happened. And so those of you who don't love college basketball, it's totally fair. College basketball is by and large a very dirty game.
Absolutely.
At the top.
Oily.
It is filthy. And I think the NCAA realized that if they were going to pop Sean Miller at Arizona and Will Wade at LSU, how much worse does it get when you get to Kentucky and North Carolina? And do you really want to open this bag?
I have my ideas. I think it'd be a lot worse because, again, it's systemic. Okay, we might have done it in the last couple of years.
Maybe not.
Yeah. Well, we don't know. Allegedly, right?
Nobody's going to testify.
That's right. No, certainly not me. I'm staying clear of a witness stand on that. But I will tell you that a lot of the different programs that are out there, it is alleged that is rampant, and more so than in football, more so than in baseball, more so than in the other sports.
It's cultural.
Yeah, well, you got the AAU guys, and you've got the sneaker companies that are coming in, the shoe companies. So you've got a lot of
special interest money.
Yeah, a lot of opportunities. and then don't forget, unlike football and baseball, you've got the scouts that are hovering around, and the agents that are sleazy and oily, just hanging all around. So yeah, it's ripe for having some alleged problems.
And what's so interesting to me about the NBA is every year there are 2 handfuls of free agents out of the college game that sign pro contracts. Mm-hmm. And there are 32 first-round picks and 32 second-round picks, and that is all.
That's it. Yeah, they stop after round 2.
It's less than 100 people that we're talking about total, and it has created this just diseased-ridden culture. And look, hey, it's great. I'm not going to put you on the pious moral high ground. Mm-hmm. Whether or not they're cheating.
I'm from LSU. I can't.
You're watching.
Absolutely. I thought it was an exciting run this year. I thought it was really cool. And again, my team was in the mix, and we won the SEC, the regular season. So I had an interest. I can't say that I've always been like that when it's just Kentucky running through everybody or some another team on their big run, but it was interesting. I mean, the SEC was great, the ACC was fabulous. Getting 3 number 1 seeds, and I'm a sports guy. I love it at that time of year. In fact, it was really cool. This is the first year in a couple of years that we haven't gone out with the 680 guys out to Las Vegas for the first first 4 days of the NCAA's. It's incredible.
It's the best weekend of Vegas you could possibly have.
Better than the Super Bowl. Most people don't realize, but it is absolutely better than the Super Bowl because it's just you start at 9:00 in the morning and you go until midnight West Coast time, 10:30, 11 o'clock West Coast time. It's all day, and by the way, I love to be a person that loves to people watch, right? And no better people watching than in one of the sports books at one of these all-day events with all the games going on. I mean, it's comical.
With
it really
some
is.
13 seed playing a 4 seed,
Oh.
and everybody's like, please cover the 12 points.
I remember the time that I went out with some buddies of mine. First time I ever went out there for the first rounds, and it was back when UMass had Marcus Camby, and they were a really good team. And it was like the first game of the day, and it was like a 30-point line, and you had like people on pins and needles. The game was at like 28, and they were about, UMass was about to lose, and literally, I mean, you could sense every person in that place had a wager on UMass, and darned if they didn't bring the ball down, and they had like the third string center was in there, and they threw it to him. It had to be 10 feet beyond the top of the key, and he just launched a prayer, and it went in.
Oh, that's awesome.
Grown men were hugging other grown men. It was just, it was like the kickoff. Okay, this is the first one that we wanted to win.
If you are, let me just say this: if you're single and have not been out there for the March Madness event,
it's a fun time.
It's a rite of passage.
Yep.
Before you, I won't say before you get married, but before you have children, you must go.
And even if you're married, get the hall pass, be good, and go out there. It's a lot of fun.
It's a great way to spend $5,000.
In fact, Rhonda went out with me out there 2 years ago when we did our big 680 The Fan road trip out to the first rounds of the NCAAs. And it was so funny. She goes, man, this is fun. Now, I don't think she's made more than a quarter bet in the slots ever in her life, but she was out there. She goes, this is pretty exciting. I was telling you.
The energy is outstanding. Well, tell me this. We were talking before we walked in here with Ray. One of the things, you love sports.
I do.
I'm in a place where I have little kids, so I used to love them, and I will love them again.
Yeah.
But I was watching the Detroit Pistons the other night playing for like 4 minutes because Lindsay Ann was not paying attention to what I was watching. I have no vested interest in the NBA at all, and I was like, I'll just watch Blake Griffin. We'll see what happens.
You just really wanted 4 minutes apiece.
4 minutes, and we have talked about the way that people procure content today is so vastly different than even 5 years ago. How does that, as a guy who invests money into radio stations, you do any television advertising or not really?
We did a while ago. We did with WSB back in 2005, 2006, 2007, somewhere in that range. It's just very expensive.
Talk about your experience at that time, because the conversation we're going to wander into.
Yeah.
Talk about the pros and cons of advertising on WSB, ABC, CBS, those types of stations.
Well,
you didn't wander in here thinking I was going to ask you that.
No, I find it to be extremely expensive. We found it not to be a good purchase. Rhonda and I at Duffy Realty, we're really good at monitoring where our business is coming in from. It's like the second or third question we ask people when they call in to get information from us. Right? How'd you hear about us? So we can spend our dollars wisely. Back then, I think.
What do they say, by the way?
For us, it's word of mouth, because we've had such a success selling 27,000 properties in 17 years. It's friends telling friends, neighbors telling neighbors, coworkers telling coworkers. Then it's the internet presence. And then for us, it's sports radio. 680 The Fan's been phenomenal for us. It's a very reasonable buy. Sports listeners are very passionate.
Yeah.
It's almost like a soap opera for guys on,
Oh yeah, it's like The Bachelor.
It really is. In fact, it was just funny. I just ran into John Kincaid at Cabernet yesterday for Easter brunch. I was listening on the station earlier in the week, and he said, "Oh, they got a great Easter brunch." And so my son and Rhonda's in a little business seminar out in California right now, and so my son and I went for Easter brunch, and there's John coming out. So it was kind of funny. I said, "I listened to your advice. I actually booked it." Cabernet's just right up here the street.
That's a delicious place to eat.
Great. It was really good. The over and under on my number of lobster tails I had was like 7.5, and it went way over. keeping our gambling thread going. But it's like a soap opera. You get to listen to the guys I've gotten to become friends with, good friends with Buck Bellew, and of course
people we feel like we all know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and
even though he has no idea who I am.
Well, actually, it's kind of funny. I was listening to the show today, and John said, "Yeah, I ran into Frank yesterday." He goes, "Well, I thought Frank was up at Big Canoe this week." I was like, "Man, that's good press when Buck knows where you are." So, but it's been really good to utilize that platform because there's so much passion that people have, for sports. And again, I'm the atypical client that I want, college educated, affluent. Good demographic, living in $500,000 plus houses. These types of people are the people that are 680 listeners. I have found that other stations don't have the clientele that 680 has that I've been very happy with there, and the cost is really reasonable for us. The larger radio stations with the higher cost, we've found it hasn't been that good of a dollar for dollar return. I won't name names.
Not asking.
Yeah, I won't name names. But as far as the platform of television, that was even more expensive. And, a 30-second spot is hard for me. 1 minute is better. Actually, really 2 minutes is better for me because of the business model that we've got, our flat fee model. I'm not like your typical real estate agent who, hey, here's my brand, call me. I'm the same as everybody else. We have such a different model that it has to be explained on air a little bit for us to be differentiated. Now, not so much now since we have sold 27,000 properties, but conveying that information. It's just not meant for a 30-second TV spot. But I will tell you, back when we were first starting out, it was a vanity play, right? So,
yeah, sure.
In fact, no different than me coming in and speaking with you today. It's great. It's content. You can't go wrong with content. The more content you have, the better.
And no one is more vain than I
am. I noticed that we have the two cameras here. That wasn't here the last time I was recording.
So along that line, and I don't mind putting this out there, although I have no stake in it, Daniel and Hans in the group here have started, and you can jump in if you want to jump in here. But if they started YouTube channels, because one of the first, if you get to a place where you have several 100,000 subscribers, mm-hmm. and their prayer is that you're famous Chipper Jones, and that you say something that winds up on Fox News like is a crazy person, mm-hmm. because if all those people go watch it on YouTube, that Chipper Jones said X,
sure.
How much money is that worth?
Correct.
Whether or not, it might be bad for him, it's great for eyeballs.
And we were talking about different sports personalities who have decided not to work at networks and stations. They actually want to be controversial. Let me bring up a point. Darren Ravel just this weekend made a comment about the LSU Gymnastics team. These girls went and won runner-up in the nation for the gymnastics. Just outscored anything that they've ever done in the past. And, LSU is a very close-knit group. We're very passionate about our sports teams, and we have a joie de vivre unlike anywhere else, in my opinion.
I don't even know what that means.
Joy of life. We enjoy ourselves. Let's put it that way. And so what wound up happening is Lamar, I think it was Lamar, it was one of the billboard companies, did it because their relationship with LSU actually just put up a congratulations at being the national runner-up in gymnastics. And I mean, God, who would have a problem with that? Well, Darren Ravel had an issue with it. He goes, you can't have a billboard for
with
coming in second. No, coming in second. Like, how can you,
that guy's such a loser.
Well, in other words, how could you, have the superlative that you were second in something? Well, of course, the thought is, these girls were second in the nation, and what do you care if a billboard company that has an association with the university gives a congratulations? Yeah. But what, of course, he was doing is gaining publicity.
It was the best thing to happen to LSU women's gymnastics ever.
And it's the best thing for Darren because it created this, storm around him. And now he's got all this publicity because, again, I don't know where he works. I think he was with ESPN and then he left. So now he's like this independent person. So that's, to your point.
Shock jock.
Yeah, it's not just somebody that we know making a comment, this is their lifeblood for getting them noticed.
Yeah.
And keeping them in the press, and and keeping whatever their followers, or however it is they've monetized their business model.
So I'm a well documented lover of Twitter.
I'm a Twitter guy too.
Not as more than my wife would like, but not as bad as some elected officials. We'll put it that way.
You haven't gotten scolded yet. Let's put it that way.
I don't get scolded in public. I know that
to our knowledge, yeah.
I know that the city of Alpharetta. I know I make them very nervous, but I'm almost to a year and a half and haven't done anything where they're like, "Ooh." But my wife was like, "You can't say that," and so I wanted to kind of. Darren Ravel is one of those guys. I have an inside joke with my brother and a guy I used to live with that played minor league baseball. And anytime we respond to him, we call him by the wrong name that starts with a D. And so we call him Daryl or Daryl.
I saw that actually out there. People were doing that.
And I didn't do it, but I love that people are funny. Like, Darren, you just gotta understand. So he's also got the group of people who call him by the wrong name. But the word is that if he sees it and he has the time, he will block everybody that does it. So I was told by the guys who run the paper here that I was allowed to say whatever I wanted to say on social media, but if I ever attacked a resident, they would chastise me. And I was like, well, why would I do that?
Yeah, no.
But Darren Ravel, absolutely, that's good press.
He's outside of Alpharetta. We don't have to worry about him.
Maybe, unless you're moving here, Darren.
That's right. And if you are, I got a good agent for you.
Yeah, absolutely. He charges you nothing to buy a house.
That's right. That's exactly right.
What would you say? What are the ways that you guys are looking into advertising here over the next? Are there any other strategies? Because this is a good segue to where we're going to go. Okay. Are there any other strategies that you guys wanted to employ? Take a look at. What do you? Because you guys are super sharp. I mean,
thank you.
I think you're probably on Twitter half because you like it and half because you realize that you're.
I tag us all the time, and everything. Yeah, the Duffy Realty. Like,
I'm going to start just shit talking you.
well, and I will answer. I will pick up the baton. But it's funny, with like 680 when we do stuff with them. One of my features that we do every night is the Duffy Realty distance to home bomb of the night. So it's the Braves hitter that hit the best home run, right? And so of course I want it retweeted. I want to put it out there. I'll tag it, and I'll tag the Braves, and I'll tag 680, and I'll tag me. Again, that's the way.
Whoever you need.
Guerrilla marketing right now is so it's so inexpensive compared to your typical media, right? Another thing that we're doing, which is huge, is we're doing content. Every week, I think it's like 6 years now, we've been putting new content, new blog posts on our website. And, we put all the tags on it that we need to put it, but then I have all my staff posted on their, Facebook pages. And then, Ron and I share it. And I mean, there's so many things that you can do to drive clicks or eyeballs to your website, and you use social media to promote the content that you've put out there, and it's like a honeycomb, right? And if you're not doing it, shame on you, because your competitors are.
So are you Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all of the what do you do?
I don't do Instagram only because the millennials are not our sweet spot of clients.
Okay. It's
Facebook, Twitter, and then posts.
So let me push back on it.
Yep.
Let's say, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I know your business better than you. So part of me asking you this is disingenuous, because I know you know what you're doing.
Yep.
What percentage of your buyer is a repeat buyer?
Repeat buyer, I would say 15%.
So it's pretty low.
Yeah, 15, 20%. Are they a repeat client?
That's probably a better way to say it.
That's about 40%.
Okay.
Because when they buy, more likely they're going to then turn around and sell.
Yep.
More likely, though, what they're going to do is they're going to find us because of our $500 flat fee on the selling side, and then use us on the buying side. Both of our models, both parts of our model, the buying and the selling side, run concurrent with each other. They're independent of each other. You can be my selling client and not have to be my buying client. You can be my buying client, not my selling client. You can be neither, or hopefully you're smart enough to be both. And that's where we're normally bringing in the repeat business. They sell with us, and while they're selling with us, then we're looking to help them find their next property. And working with a buyer's agent, like you were joking about earlier, you said, oh, yeah, I know an agent. He'll help you buy a property and it won't charge anything. And I didn't expound on that, but I'm glad that we're bringing this up now. It's never a cost to buy a property with an agent. It's the smartest thing in real estate. It is the biggest no-brainer. With all due respect to my old friend John Shibley in the mortgage business, it's the biggest no-brainer in the history of Earth, because you're having a professional work on your behalf. In other words, you've got a knight in the joust. You're not having to clink around in your own armor out there.
That you don't pay for.
That you don't pay for. You pay no money. And if you're going to go out and look at listed properties anyway, somebody's going to make that 6% in most cases, unless they're smart enough to use Duffy at $500.75%. That is a shameless plug.
Absolutely shameless.
But if you're going to be buying a property, you have no benefit by going in on your own. You're not going to get a better deal. It just means that the other listing agent's going to keep the whole gargantuan, ridiculous 6%. But if you can bring in your own agent, you have a professional helping you in that process, looking out for your rights. And buyers have rights. Most people don't know what those rights are, because most everything in the real estate game is stacked in the favor of the seller, not the buyer. You have to know what those rights are. And the mere fact of asking in writing an agent to be your representative, and it can be written on a cocktail napkin, that one step then makes that agent give that buyer their fiduciary obligation, their loyalty, their obedience, their confidentiality.
You're an advocate.
You don't get if you're just schlepping in the backseat of some part-time housewife, part-time RE/MAX agent's car, driving around that didn't get you to give them the representation. Huge difference. And of course, with our model, not only are we protecting their rights, but we also share some of our commission with them. Our thought was, and we've been doing this since 2004, we said, look, with the onset of the internet, like you were joking about, I already know my properties that I want to go out and see.
Sure.
I know them, me and the missus are up, looking at online as soon as the kids go to bed at night. I know exactly what I want to go see. And if that agent won't take me because of some petty high school jealousies that they have with the other agent who actually has the house listed, I'll get out of their car, put my thumb out, and there'll be another agent along in 5 seconds.
You trip over them all day.
That's right. Or I'll call directly and go directly. And so what we did was we said, well, look, if these people are doing the work anyway, they know what's available, we might as well split some of our commission with them. And so that's what we've been doing. We've been offering, in most cases, if it's above $100,000, we'll give $500 to our to our clients for helping us in that process. Because of the reduction of services, we can do it.
Cut that. That's like a 4-minute long commercial of why they're the. No, I'm kidding.
No, go ahead, cut it. Yeah,
he's going to want to use that.
That's right. I'll take some snackables out of that.
There's your 2-minute. You wanted to have some sort of 2-minute plug you could just give to somebody. I was like, I'm not even going to step on you. Keep going. What would you say as you've seen things change? Mm-hmm. Where do you think it is next? And answer that question by saying this, and this is what I said I was going to push back on you. Okay. I think using Instagram and I don't use Instagram. I'm a straight up Twitter guy because I don't really care. I just like people to chirp at me. Mm-hmm. You can't really do that when it's like pictures of your kids.
Correct.
And like everybody from your Sunday school class.
We're doing Instagram. I'm having some of my other people do that. I'm such an old fuddy-duddy that I'm very well astute in Facebook and Twitter. I mean, because that's what I do.
You just tweet.
I tweet and I have Facebook. I've got one of my younger people that are doing Instagram. It's not our bread and butter because, again, the clientele that's in Facebook and going to our website, and they're older, they're more established.
Yeah, and that's kind of where
more income.
I feel like these 27-year-old kids will eventually be your 45-year-old, and so
they will.
I figure your cost for acquisition.
And about that time, they might be looking to buy their first house, 45, while they're in their parents' basement. Look, here's the thing: I don't.
Frank and Rhonda, getting you out of your mother's basement since.
By the way, I wrote a blog on that actually.
Oh,
getting
really?
your millennial out of your basement. And of course, a little bit of a sales pitch in it, but it was ideas of how to do that. Look, here's the thing. We don't turn anybody down. We are truly, Duffy Realty is truly the equal opportunity real estate brokerage out there. If they can afford the $500,
You're in.
You're in. You're in the club, right? We do have an option where people can pay 4.5% when the property sells. They don't have to do anything up front. But 99.9% of our 27,000
You can
properties,
scrape together 500.
yeah, and people always ask, well, am I getting less because I'm paying less? That's the misconception. The reason that we charge less has nothing to do with the amount of services or the proficiency of the services that we give to people. I mean, we've done this 27,000 times. We're pretty good at this by now. The reason we charge less, it was because it was a good marketing strategy. I would much prefer to pinprick 1,500 people than club to death 3.
Yeah.
Right. And that's why we set up the pricing model that we did. It's not that they're getting less. I do everything I do for the other guys. In fact, I've got more economies of scale and volume than your typical run of the mill agent who only does this 1 or 2 times a year. I can afford to do those things. But, you know, I tell people all the time, the reason that we can do what we do and the proficiency that we do it is because we had the volume. The volume gives us the opportunity of charging you a lot less. I don't have to overcharge the onesies or twosies because, again, we do so much business.
When does Frank and Rhonda decide that they're going to start doing weekly podcasts to offer advice? When does that happen?
You know, we did that once.
I remember
we
you
had
said
the
on the
Duffy
radio.
Realty you know, Duffy Realty show. It was really comical. We had a show on WGST until they decided to hurt their brand by all their different programming changes, and we did that for, I guess it was like 4.5, 5 years. And right before the end of that run. This is like 2008. Andrew Salzman and Steak Shapiro of 790 The Zone came to us and said, "Look, we'll give you a free hour. We want to soften the sound
just
of
do
our
it.
we want to soften the sound of an all male sort of broadcast." Now again, my good friend Sandra Goldwyn was there, but it was mostly guy voices. They said we would love to have a competent woman's voice on something different. For the spots.
Just throw a change up.
Yeah, throw a change up, right? And so what we wound up doing, it was kind of funny. So we did that for like a year and a half. And we did a spot schedule, which they gave us the free hour, but we did a spot schedule. But what was so funny about it is that we would go in and we would have the 8:00 Sunday show at 790 The Zone. And so we would be doing our show, and about 40 minutes into the show, Rhonda would have to get the kids, get in the Range Rover, drive down to WGST to start our 9:00 show. So I'm finishing up the radio show at 790 by myself. And then she goes down and starts the show at WGST at like 9:07, once the clock starts. And then I have to hop in a cab. This was pre-Uber and pre-Lyft. I hop in a cab and I'm like, "Cabby, can you please put on 640? I'm on the radio right now. I have to find out what I'm talking about." And I would listen in the cab going down to the next radio show. And it was hilarious. We did that for like a year and a half. And it just got to be too much. We were like, we're killing ourselves getting up on Sunday mornings. And we would bring our kids down. And our kids then, my 20-year-old and 17-year-old now, they were really young back then. They were like 9 and 6. And so both of them really learned how to work a computer at the radio station on the other side of the glass. The program, the program director, the engineer would go, "Okay, kids, y'all here's DoraTheExplorer.com. Y'all go out there and so the kids, it was funny. They all thought that everybody's parents had radio shows, right? So like everybody has a radio show, and but that's how we grew up doing it. And what was cool about it was, this is before we had 27,000 sold properties. It gave us our air of being proficient and of being experts, being on air. And we enjoyed it. It was a good shtick, husband and wife shtick. And it was fun, and we might do it one day, go back to it. It was a lot of fun. It was an enjoyable thing.
What does she spend the vast majority? Obviously, she's the face. By and large,
she's the brains. I'm just the
you're
I'm
the
the glorified
machine?
picker up. Yeah, a picker up of trash and the sign developer. Now I'm really what I am is I'm the marketing director. My job, as you could tell from the first 40 minutes of this broadcast, my job is to sell the concept of Duffy Realty. I sell the brand. I've hired people to sell the real estate. I sell the concept that we've come up with. And so that's what I do. But Rhonda is the visionary. Rhonda is the founder. Rhonda is the one that is constantly evolving in the industry. She's brilliant. She's the best business person I've ever come across in my life. And we have a unique working living situation
Marriage.
where we're married, right? And
Cannot imagine.
and we've made it work for 22 years married. And Duffy Realty just had its 17th birthday, its 17th anniversary last month. And we just keep rocking along. And I don't know if you're aware of this. We actually did something really cool for our employees. I think I might have mentioned it the last time I was in on the podcast, but we made our business an ESOP for our employees.
Shareholder.
We're employee owned, and it's a really cool concept. Of course, there's incredible tax benefits, but we did it for the benefit of what's called our beneficial owners, which are our employees. And so we did that in October 1 of 2015. So for almost going on 4 years now, we've been employee owned. So Ron and I are still the executives. We're still the board. We still work like, again, this is our baby, but we gave the company
gave
to
some
the
of it away.
benefit of the employees.
Yeah, after
great.
after the first 25,000 sold houses, it's good to let some of the people backbenching the work have a taste.
Well, and here the great thing about it is that's the reason why we were so successful. So it was giving it back to them. We have really. It's been an incredible ride. It really has. Like we were joking out in the hallway, we've been doing this for 17 years, and I think if we'd have come with the idea 2 years earlier, I don't think it would have worked because there wasn't the technology to be able to manage the volume at that point. We opened our doors in March of 2002. 2000, right after the .com crash. I don't know if technology was there to do it. Yeah, I don't think we would have been able to do it. And then if we'd have waited 2 more years, competitors would have beat us. And we've got competitors out there. But the funny thing about the competitors, where somebody can match me on price. I mean, an old-fashioned traditional agent can match me on price today. All they got to do is change their letterhead and go from Fannie Fulbright, full-priced, $500, agent to full-priced agent to Fannie, $500 agent. But what she can't do is what we do for the $500. Every year, it's like rings on a tree. We keep adding more and more services. So it's not what you pay. It's what you get for what you pay. And that was our kind of pulling the drawbridge back over the moat to keep our competitors. But had we started in 2004 and not 2002, somebody might have beaten us to it. So it's interesting timing.
You are I can talk to you all day. The best part about you is that I can put these out in segments all along the week.
Again, we call them snackables.
Just they're like crumbs. Let's go here because you're a big fan of live sports.
I am.
Like I said, I used to be, and I'll be back one day.
And best part is you can bring your children when they get a little older, and that's really cool.
And so Charlie he's 6. He's playing baseball, and so now every once in a while we'll watch a half inning.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And hopefully somebody hits a ground ball.
Yeah.
So he'd be like, see? He throws the ball to first.
He got down and he, put the glove on the ground, and it's like he
Alligator
made the follow through.
arms
There you go.
Throw it across. And he's but
how cool is that? That's so cool.
It's super fun. It's super fun to be able to watch it make sense to him, and he's left-handed, so. He's
we need to get him at first. We need to get him that first base minute over there.
He stands over there. He gets really frustrated though being left-handed because he's one of the only kids that will hit the ball and he hits it right at the first baseman, which means they can run straight to first.
In that age, taking out the throw is a big thing.
I promise you, Charlie, when you're older, if you can still hit the ball like that, you're going to be so well served.
Absolutely.
But he, when watching the Braves games with him is a lot of fun. How do you feel? Awesome. How do you feel about the Braves this year?
I feel great about them. In fact, we wound up. You're going to like this. We were talking about advertising. About 3 weeks into last year, I realized what we had. And I was like, holy mackerel, this team is going to be exciting. The young talent is coming up, and it's coming up now. Acuna Jr. is going to be here shortly.
He's awesome.
Ozzie was on a tear in those first 3 weeks last year. And so the Braves and 680 The Fan, where I have my package through, I'm not officially a Braves sponsor, but I'm advertising on Braves content. that they had been trying to get me for years and years and years. And I was like, guys, I'm sorry, I'm not going to,
pay the licensing and all that good stuff.
I'm not jumping on board because the product is not there, right? I mean, we're in a rebuild. I'm a good enough sports fan, and we'd even talked to them about a home run distance sponsorship feature in the stadium. And I was like, well, guys, that's great, but you'll only hit like 15 home runs in this year. I can't do it. I mean, it'd be like $4,000 a home run. I can't do that. But with 680 The Fan, they've been always wanting me to do it. But when I saw what we had last year, being a good sports fan and being a pretty decent marketer, I said, now is the time. So I got a great deal and a great sponsorship, and we've got like a feature that's in them. So
and good seats, good seats to the game.
Yes, I do. That's part of the package as well. And
I think I see you down there when somebody fouls the ball off somebody's head.
Honestly, I don't think I've paid for a ticket in this town in like about 15 years. If you do sports radio marketing right, you normally don't have to pay for a lot of stuff. Comes with the neighborhood, but having that thought of what the Braves are going to be and what they're building. Now again, we still got you got to get our bullpen up, and we got to get starting pitching, and so there's still a lot of work to be done. But the nucleus of the day-to-day lineup is there,
and under contract for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. Well, with sweetheart deals, I don't know if I'd be hiring Ozzie or Ronald's attorneys, but they're agents, because those were real great deals for the Braves. Good for us. But asking me what I think of the Braves, my money's on the Braves. My advertising is with the Braves. I think the excitement around the team is there. If they can make a run this year and get some pitching, get some of this young pitching up, and I can anchor the cost of what I've done to the cost of getting in originally and only having a small upcharge as the years go on, it would have been a real goodbye.
Well, I think everybody in Atlanta is somewhat excited. The thing that frustrates me about the Braves is that they look a lot like they did last year. Yeah. And I know how this ends. You run into one of the luxury tax type teams out on the West Coast.
It's 3 pitchings. You need 3 pitchers in postseason.
And I think we have 3/4 of one.
That's right. That's right. The Free did look good.
He did look good for 6 innings.
But four outings now. He's had 4 great outings. But no, you're right. We don't have that top of the rotation. This is our ace. This is our second guy. This is our third guy, and he's strong. We don't have that.
So let me ask you this. I'm going to give you an opportunity to give some feedback to people that you ultimately pay for advertising dollars. Does it frustrate you that the Braves? I don't fault you because you don't know. I fault you when you don't learn. And the fact that they sat there all winter and didn't change anything about their pitching is just frustrating.
Well, my guy Chuck Oliver, who is our endorser on 680 The Fan, he has bemoaned this literally for the last couple of months. He goes, "You didn't do anything.
They didn't do shit. It's horrible.
You didn't do anything." But here's the thing. Here's my take though on it. They are making the right moves. They are inking these kids long term. So I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. I'm giving Alex Anthopoulos the benefit of the doubt that you're gonna fix the issues that we've got.
He's great.
I'm not gonna put your feet to the fire that you had to do it in a season and a half. I'm giving you some time. I mean, Coppy made some great moves, but he left it as a train wreck. I mean,
it was a bad
still
deal.
An oil slick behind when he left. But I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. Now, if we regress this year and then we don't address it over the next offseason, then all bets are off. But I think they're doing great. And look, let's face it, the premier brand, with all due respect to Home Depot and to Delta, the premier brand, in my opinion, in this city is the Atlanta Braves.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
they know it, unfortunately. That's why.
And I think the
cost is what it is to sponsor with them.
I think Alex as a GM has been as effective as he's been allowed to be, and I'm afraid I'm afraid that's the problem.
Correct. It's Denver. It's the Liberty Media Group that has the purse strings that are now allowing him to go out and. I mean, let's put it this way. And Ted was kind of asleep at the wheel, toward his last days as well, right?
He just caught lightning in a bottle.
I will say this for Ted. Ted was brilliant to see cable television, and look, I'm from New Orleans. I remember in the '80s,
Only
early
reason
'80s,
you
late
knew him.
'70s. Man, I knew Crazy Pascal Perez. I knew Mayer. I knew, of course, Dale Murphy, Bob Horner. I knew them because they were on our TV. Now, I also knew the Cubs.
Yeah, sure.
So I could make a choice between WGN and WTBS.
You were from the South.
But I was from the South. I liked the Braves, right? Even as lousy as they were. And so you got to give Ted that. But if we had a singular owner, and by the way, I don't know if you knew this. I heard through the grapevine, it's not a secret or anything, but I think Arthur Blank made a run at the Braves back the last time before Liberty Media purchased them, that there was a foray for him to try and purchase them as well. Again, I might not have my facts totally straight, but that's really what somebody needs for a baseball team, because it's not a salary cap like the NFL.
No, you can spend $1 billion.
Now there's a luxury tax that you have to pay, i.e., see the New York Yankees, but you have that ability, and you need that one person. You don't need the corporation, right? So that's what we're missing, in my opinion. Like you said, it's not the GM.
I think that the fact that Liberty Media is so tied at the hip with the Battery, and that it's all kind of one.
Yeah,
it's a great product.
Great business. Oh, incredible.
I mean, I'm jealous of, none of those elected officials in Cobb County have their job anymore, but there's no doubt it's an asset worth buying, especially over the long term. But I just wanted to see, baseball has real problems, whether they want to look themselves in the face or not. The fan attendance,
the SunTrust is now. I mean, go on a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night. It's a third full,
and that's everywhere.
I know.
And so you look and you start to see some of these salaries, like you've just seen the Braves. Those guys are taking early deals, and maybe they're not as educated as they need to be. Maybe they're not willing to wait until arbitration's over. Who knows?
Bird in the hand. I can't fault them for it. I think they left a lot of money on the table.
I think there's no doubt.
And I'm not an agent or a sports attorney, and I won't play one here on the podcast. But I think they left a lot. In fact, I think it was universally thought throughout.
Oh, I've
baseball.
Heard people in baseball over the last week say that the Ozzie contract was the worst one they've ever seen somebody sign.
Yeah.
But it also reminds me of the time, probably 10 years ago, not even 10 years ago, when the Braves went to Frank Gore and Brian McCann at the same time with the same deal. And one of them took it and one of them didn't. And right, wrong, or indifferent, if you ask Brian McCann if he's glad he took it, he'd probably tell you, yeah. And so it's not to slight Frank Gore, because he's had a pretty good career, and he's obviously doing things that, still allow him the opportunity to be in the game. And I think he's going to be one of those national guys before
Absolutely, he will be. I know Frenchie. I actually it's kind of funny. I ran into him and met him when we went to the road trip up to South Bend. The Arlettas, who have the Swarm, right? The owners of the Swarm, they're big Notre Dame people. In fact, Andy, who's the president, become a good friend of mine, and they had a huge pregame for Georgia and all the 680 people up there. So I got to hang out with Frenchie at the Bloody Mary bar in South Bend, and I've gotten to become Twitter buddies with him out there. And I'm telling you what, he is going to be a John Smoltz like color person going forward.
Always,
absolutely.
He is never, and I mean this with 100% sincerity. Since that guy was 12 years old, he has never met a stranger.
He does make you feel like you're a pal. There's no doubt. Great guy.
Can't explain it. I mean, there's nobody. If he was a year behind me at Parkview, I'm sure if he wasn't like most likely to be like a famous athlete, he would have been best all around.
Yeah.
Like,
cool guy.
Good to good to everybody.
Yeah, guy's guy.
Well, what do you think about the as we're talking about stadiums are less full?
Mm-hmm.
Some of that's going to come back as the cable bundle unbundles, and that is underway.
Yeah.
I was looking here. ESPN 2 years ago was $7 and change to have as a part of your cable bundle, which means if you spend $100 on TV, that was $7 of those dollars.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have the market cap that it did, but I think it's really interesting that
That's why they've had all the layoffs too, by the way, in the last 6 or 7 years.
Well, what's funny is that it's all hidden in when you go look at on their earnings report because it's lumped in with Disney, and Disney bought Star Wars.
Yeah.
And so you can't really see how badly ESPN is
hemorrhaging.
Just taking a beating.
Yeah, they're hemorrhaging.
What do you see for those baseball networks and the sports that are somewhat in decline, but the owners are still making, they're making as much money as they've ever made?
Well, the big deal is the TV deal, right? I mean, look at Northeast Sports Network. For the Red Sox. You got the Yankees, and look at college now. Like, I mean, the Longhorn Nation. My God, they're printing money, right? So content is king, and but what's interesting from a personal consumer standpoint, you know, my $230 a month DirecTV bill,
which is excessive.
It's crazy. It's nuts, right? It's insane. But I've got the NFL Sunday ticket. But now, in fact, I just saw as we were talking out in the hall, I saw that DirecTV is in the fight of their life to keep the Sunday ticket. The second that Pandora box get open, DirecTV's in trouble.
Absolutely,
they're going to lose 40%, 50% of their clients, and they know it. That's why they're fighting to keep it. Once streaming content becomes available to the masses, kind of like it is now with Netflix and Amazon Prime. My good buddy Carlos Medina, who's 680 The Fan, one of the producers, he goes, man, uncouple. He goes, it's the best thing I ever did. He goes, I'm saving tons of money. And he goes, we watch whatever we want. We just do it through the different individual services. And he goes, I get almost all the sports that I need. He goes, do it. He goes, it's a fraction of the cost.
Well, you would be the guy. You'd be the guy's guy who would go through that process. And I think you could give an more than adequate representation because you've got people like me who are currently out of it just a little bit. But I think the biggest problem that industry, the over the top, as they call it, where the subscription based, how often does your Netflix buffer? If you go there, Amazon Prime, it's still to a place where it's a real thing.
Yeah.
And so if I'm going to watch Alabama play,
and the amount of content is limited as well on a lot of those.
But if I'm going to watch, if I am a dyed-in-the-wool Alabama Crimson Tide fan, and it's every
there's a cure for that. Just letting you know.
2 out of every 3 years they're playing in the national championship, and I get the red button or the red buffering button of death as an over the top. That's why I can't go yet.
Yeah, or the storms or whatever. But keep in mind, most of those stations now have two channels. You've got HD and you've got the regular channel. Normally, the buffering is much better if you're just on the regular channel. So watch HD as long as you're not having issues with the buffering or with with storms and stuff. But then you can just go onto the regular channel and it normally comes in pretty clear.
No, so I don't have anything. I still am an old school Uverse. I have not made the switch because I don't want to deal with the thunderclouds.
Yeah. And again, I only did it because I'm a NFL guy.
Yeah, it was a good deal.
A Saints fan. I wanted to have all of the without having to go to the sports bar to look at it, and that's what I did. I did the NFL Sunday ticket, and I've been a client of theirs for about 20 years since it came out.
How excited? And we'll end here. How excited were you about watching the Super Bowl this year?
Excited's not a good word. We're not FCC regulated right now, are we?
You were upset.
I'll give you the biggest New Orleans accented mother bleaker. We got screwed. I'm sorry. We did. And I know that's a joy to all you Falcon fans out there. You revel in it just as much as I did. 28-3. Believe me, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. But that was ridiculous. That was nuts. That's one of the worst calls ever. And it's one thing to get, have a bad call and you've lost a game in week 2. That was for the Super Bowl.
And that was wrong. I can't believe that just happened.
That was wrong. And I'm telling you what, I walked out of there. In fact, Rhonda and I went to the game. We were actually in New Orleans.
I'm surprised you guys didn't burn that place down.
Well, but that is the funny thing about New Orleans. Think about that. There was no riots. There were no cars being flipped. We know how to party.
Absolutely.
We're professionals at sports and celebrations or disappointments, and it comes from having bags on our head back in the 1990 the 1980 season. But we know how to handle things, right? So with most places go nuts over a win, we take it pretty much in stride. We're professionals amongst amateurs, so we did the right thing. But I will tell you, when we walked out of there, I've never had a collective. It was just like this, like collective exhale when we left the Superdome. And again, I know this is the joy of anybody that's listening to this podcast that's a Falcons fan. Enjoy it now, because vengeance is coming twice this year. Just letting you know. But I'm telling you, it was unlike anything I've ever experienced. So yeah, it was rough. I mean, hey, look, those are just like in life. Opportunities don't come around.
No, they
often.
don't. Super Bowl appearances do not grow on trees,
right? And so it was a groin kick. There's no doubt.
Well, and you look at anything that's truly hard to do, you have to be really well prepared. You have to be really well prepared. You have to be really good. You have to have had the schedule go your way.
Really lucky.
You had to be healthy.
Yep.
And then to lose like that after all those things happened.
After all those things went together to be in that position. Oh, I know. It's irritating. But think of every NFL champion, Super Bowl champion, and I include my 2009 Saints, Atlanta Falcon fans. You'll get there one day. The 2009 Saints. At every one of those runs, you had something bizarre happen in your favor.
Oh, sure.
So the fates, you got to be good, and you have to have great leadership, and you have to have great coaching, and blah, 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 but you have to have it go your way. I will tell you one quick, funny little thing about my tickets to the NFC Championship game. I actually wound up going on Sean McVay's tickets.
Nice.
One of his best friends and his high school coach.
Yeah, he was with the St. Pius.
Yeah, lives here in Atlanta, and he happened to be a friend of one of our friends, and Rhonda and I were scrambling for tickets that Sunday morning, and he goes, well, I got tickets. You can buy them. He goes, there's Sean McVay's tickets. I was like, oh. This is going to make the story so good when we go to Atlanta. When all my buddies come to Atlanta and we beat up on New England or Kansas City, I said, this is going to make the story so much sweeter. Never got to use the story.
He seems like a good guy.
He is, yeah. Cool daddy. I mean, if you see his setup out in L.A. and
yeah, I'm sure he's not starving to
no,
death.
he's got a lot of things going for him out there. He's doing good.
He's not married, is he?
No.
I'm sure his life's really rough.
No comment.
Yeah. Well, Frank, thanks for stopping in today. We'll turn it loose. This has been another episode of the Ben Burnett Show on the App and Media Podcast Network. Have a good day, everybody. You could talk to a wall, man.
I could, yeah. That's pretty much.